Hello and welcome everyone to the Party Animal Podcast, episode number 5, Unprotected Sex. I'm Thomas.
And I'm Luna. Thanks for joining us, everyone. We're looking into something really important today, getting into the real consequences, sometimes pretty raw, of a single decision made in, a moment of intimacy.
Yeah, exactly. We're exploring some material today that really focuses on accountability, on growth, and the huge ripple effect that happens when an impulsive moment meets, the tough reality of long-term change.
Mm-hmm.
The basic idea seems simple, but the fallout, anything but. How does one single intimate decision totally change two people's lives forever?
We're looking specifically at the story of Victoria and David, a young couple in New York City.
Right. And their relationship, it wasn't superficial. It was built on real affection, growing curiosity about each other. They were doing what lots of couples do, getting closer emotionally over several months. So this isn't about strangers meeting and something happening.
Not at all. It was about a connection that was already there, already deepening. Yeah, a genuine bond. And as they got closer emotionally, things naturally developed physically. That happens, right?
Of course. So one evening, it seemed like just another moment of being close, maybe feeling that trust, or maybe just not fully thinking through the prevention side of things in the heat of the moment. They decided to have unprotected sex.
And that one choice made in that private moment, that's where our look at the consequences really starts. We're going to trace the whole landscape. They suddenly found themselves in the emotional side, the practical stuff, the social pressures. It's a lot.
It really is. So our goal today is to kind of unpack all that. We want to pull out the key insights from their story, looking at the big structural changes that happen when the unexpected becomes your reality. We're really trying to stress how vital preparation and communication are.
And also that really rapid, sometimes kind of traumatic maturity that gets demanded almost overnight.
Exactly. Let's get into this journey, starting right after that decision was made. Okay, so section 1. The shock of unexpected consequences. We begin with the immediate aftermath. Weeks go by after that night, and Victoria starts noticing things. These quiet, personal signals.
Yeah, like intense tiredness, right? Not just, I'm a bit sleepy, but real fatigue.
Right, and nausea that just wouldn't go away. And then the big one, the missed periods, the sign you really can't ignore for long.
But the material points out something really common, that initial attempt to just brush it off, Denial is such a powerful first instinct, especially when facing something huge that totally throws your life plans off track.
Oh, absolutely. You try to rationalize it.
Yeah.
Like, maybe I'm just stressed or my cycle's irregular sometimes.
Yeah.
Anything but face the possibility.
Exactly. She was trying to wait it out, hoping it was something else, until the physical signs just became undeniable. You just can't ignore them anymore.
And that moment of confirmation, the positive pregnancy test, it's described as hitting her like a wave. We should probably pause on that feeling for a second.
Yeah, that image is powerful. It's that instant, stomach-dropping realization, your control over your own future, everything you thought was coming next. It just feels like it's been yanked away, totally restructured and completely unplanned.
It's a fundamental shift. 1 minute, possibilities. The next, this one, huge, irreversible certainty.
And it's so isolating at first, isn't it? Because in that moment, you're the only one physically experiencing that new reality. That weight settles on you before anyone else even knows. Victoria felt that weight before she even picked up the phone to tell David.
Which brings us to telling him that difficulty.
Yeah.
It's a massive hurdle. The material says Victoria was understandably terrified. And it wasn't just about the logistics, like, how will we manage?
No, it was deeper. Fear of judgment, fear of how he'd react. Would he be angry? Would he pull away? That uncertainty is huge.
It's an incredibly vulnerable moment, isn't it? Handing over this life-altering news to the other person involved, knowing they have options in how they respond that you don't necessarily have.
Definitely. And David's reaction, it's described as complex. It wasn't simple. The material mentions it wasn't linear, like a straight line from shock to acceptance.
Right. It shifted. First, maybe disbelief. That moment of, wait, are you sure? Could the test be wrong?
Yeah, that denial phase again, but from his side. But then pretty quickly it turned into this immediate wave of guilt and concern.
Guilt, okay. Is that like blaming himself or more like...
I think it's less about self-blame in a destructive way and more a visceral reaction to the sheer magnitude of what had happened. A sudden understanding that his role in that consensual act now meant a life depended on them together. on their unified action moving forward.
Wow. Yeah, that's heavy. Which leads directly into this idea of forced maturity. Because neither of them planned this. They were young, right? Focused on their lives in the city, maybe school, jobs.
Totally enjoying New York, building their future separately, even while building their relationship together. This wasn't on the roadmap at all.
And yet, boom, reality hits. And it immediately demands not just talking, but a whole different level of thinking, a structural overhaul of their mindset almost.
And we need to be clear what that maturity looked like practically. It wasn't just saying, okay, we'll be responsible. It was immediate actions.
Like what?
Like, okay, suddenly maybe going out all the time isn't feasible. Suddenly they're Googling healthcare providers, trying to figure out insurance stuff, which is confusing anyway.
Oh, definitely. Especially if you haven't had to navigate it much before.
Right. And needing to present a united front when they eventually told family or friends who might have mixed reactions, setting boundaries, that takes maturity.
So they didn't get the slow ramp up to adult responsibilities. They got, like, launched into it.
Catapulted is a good word.
Yeah.
The stakes of their relationship just instantly shifted from, are we serious about dating, to we are now tied together by this massive permanent responsibility.
And the immediate practical stress, the money, the living situation, especially at a place like Manhattan, that must have hit them like a ton of bricks right after the emotional shock.
Oh, absolutely. The positive test is the emotional bomb, but then comes the cold, hard reality check. How do you suddenly budget for a child in one of the most expensive places on earth when you probably weren't budgeting for that 5 minutes ago?
Yeah, that's a huge immediate pressure. Okay, so that shock settles
Yeah.
slightly, and they have to move on to figuring out what to actually do.
Which brings us to section 2. Navigating options and internal struggle. Once that initial, maybe adrenaline-fueled shock started to wear off a bit, they couldn't just sit with it. They had to get into the really tough, practical process of making decisions.
And this wasn't like choosing where to go for dinner. This was huge. It was an immediate, unavoidable necessity.
The material calls it the long conversation, which sounds about right. Not just one chat, but hours, maybe days, sleepless nights probably, just talking, exploring all the feelings, the fears, the options available. We have to appreciate the sheer emotional labor involved there. It's exhausting. You're essentially trying to analyze and decide the course of the rest of your life and someone else's life in potentially a very short, pressured time frame.
And the depth of that conversation, the fact they were weighing the choices carefully, it does show a level of maturity, even if it was forced on them. They didn't just react impulsively to the pregnancy itself.
Right. They actually detailed the alternatives. They tried to look at the reality of each path. We can kind of break down the framework they likely used, even if they didn't label it like this.
Okay, so what were the main paths they considered?
Well, option 1, keep the pregnancy, raise the child themselves. That immediately brings up huge practical questions.
Like money, obviously. Childcare costs, needing more space, healthcare. A whole financial forecast they weren't prepared for, especially, again, in NYC.
Exactly. A real cost-benefit analysis, but with massive emotional stakes. Then option 2, adoption.
Which, on paper, might seem like it solves the immediate parenting burden, but
Wow.
the emotional complexity there.
Immense. Grief, a sense of loss, the lifelong questions. Making a permanent choice for your child's future without being directly involved day to day. That's not just logistical, it's a huge psychological weight to carry.
Definitely not an easy path either. Were there other alternatives mentioned?
The material mentions considering other alternatives too. Each potential path came with its own set of really heavy emotional and practical considerations. The key thing is that they didn't just jump. They talked it through rigorously for hours. That itself shows that developing sense of accountability.
And in the end, they reached a shared decision. They agreed to move forward together to take joint responsibility.
That joint decision is critical. That's the moment their relationship pivoted fundamentally. It became defined by this shared accountability moving forward.
So once that huge decision was made, okay, we're doing this together. Victoria started her prenatal journey. And that sounds like it was a real mix.
Yeah, a total blend. On one side, there's the undeniable physical reality, the connection to the life growing inside her, maybe moments of excitement even.
Sure, the biological pull can be strong.
But on the other side, this constant hum of anxiety, this profound awareness that her life path had just taken a sharp, unwanted turn. That tension must have been constant.
And then there were the practical steps, right? The logistics are immediate and demanding.
Oh, yeah. Finding a doctor, going to that first appointment, all the tests they run, and then learning about prenatal care. It's not just take a vitamin.
No, it's changing your diet, how much you rest, managing stress, maybe giving up things you enjoy, all while you might still be working or studying full-time and dealing with morning sickness, fatigue.
Exactly. It's a huge physical and lifestyle adjustment imposed suddenly. And the material highlights that while those physical changes were intense, the emotional transformation was even more profound.
How so?
Think about the internal conflict. Every little flutter, every ultrasound image, it reinforces the reality of motherhood approaching. But at the same time, it might also reinforce the reality of dreams being delayed or changed.
Right. The career goals, the travel plans, the independence she might have valued.
Exactly. So she's constantly negotiating, trying to reconcile the identity she had planned for herself with this new identity that was sort of thrust upon her. That's a really complex emotional space to live in for 9 months.
Yeah, I can only imagine. And meanwhile, David's going through his own internal struggle, David's internal conflict. His worries sound like they were very practical, very focused on providing.
Yes, which is a common response, particularly for men facing unexpected fatherhood. The focus often goes straight to, how will I support this family?
What were his main concerns, according to the material?
Okay, it seems like 3 main pillars. First, the big one, money. How are we going to afford this, especially in a high-cost place? The sudden pressure to save, maybe earn more.
Okay, makes sense.
Second, their living situation. Maybe they were in a small apartment, fine for 2 young people, but suddenly feeling totally inadequate for a baby. Where will the crib go? Do we need to move? Can we afford to move?
Right, the space issue.
And third, the deeper psychological stuff. Am I ready for this? Am I actually equipped emotionally to be a good father, a supportive partner through all this? That self-doubt can be really significant.
But the crucial thing is how he responded to those fears,
Right.
right? He didn't just worry silently or pull away.
No, exactly. The material shows he reacted by acting, by taking responsibility in tangible ways. He showed up.
How? What did that look like?
Well, staying by her side, physically and emotionally, going to the doctor's appointments with her, that moral support is huge. But also, crucially, engaging practically.
Okay.
Like researching baby care bottles, diapers, sleep schedules, all that stuff, showing he was mentally preparing. And importantly, finding extra work, like a part-time job, to start building up their financial safety net.
So he wasn't just saying, I'm here for you. He was actively starting to solve the problems they were facing.
Precisely. He acknowledged the challenge and immediately started tackling the parts he could control. That transformed their relationship dynamic again. It became a shared practical enterprise, not just an emotional one. He was proving his commitment was real, structural.
That's a really important distinction. He was building the framework for co-parenting and shared finances right from the start. That speaks volumes. Okay, so they made the decision to starting the practical steps, but their internal struggles then have to face the outside world. Section 3, the external pressures and societal stigma. This adds a whole new layer of difficulty.
Yeah, this is where it gets really complicated because their private journey becomes public, in a sense. It's not just about them anymore. It's about how they manage explaining this huge life change to their friends, their families.
That requires a whole different skill set, right? Like
Right.
social strategy, setting boundaries.
Definitely. And the reactions they got were apparently really mixed, which probably reflects how society generally reacts when people deviate from the expected timeline, you know?
So they faced mixed family and peer reactions. What did that look like?
Well, on one hand, the positive side, some parents, maybe some friends, offered immediate, unconditional support, which would have been incredibly important.
Like practical help or just emotional validation?
Could be both. Maybe offers of financial help or a place to stay if needed, or just saying, we support you, we love you, we're here. That kind of acceptance is a lifeline when you're feeling vulnerable.
Absolutely. But then there was the other side.
Right. Others express disappointment, maybe framing it as you messed up or you've derailed your future or why weren't you more careful? That kind of judgment adds a heavy external weight onto a couple already dealing with so much internally.
Yeah, suddenly you're having to defend your life choices to people whose support you probably really need. That sounds incredibly stressful.
Totally. And then there's the broader thing, the burden of stigma, the feeling of being judged, even by people who don't say anything directly, those judgmental whispers, the material mentions.
That feeling of being watched, maybe?
Yeah.
Like your private life is suddenly under a microscope because it doesn't fit the neat pre-approved script.
Exactly. That sense of isolation is a really common consequence of unplanned pregnancy, especially for young people. It can feel like you're suddenly outside the norm and people are looking at you differently.
So this tension, this mix of support and judgment, what did it force them to do?
It seems like it forced a really important realization. They had to understand that their decisions, their path forward had to be based on their love, their commitment to accountability, and their own values.
Not on what other people thought they should do.
Precisely. They couldn't build their future based on managing other people's expectations or judgments. Their foundation had to be internal mutual trust, shared goals. That's a huge step in self-definition, figuring out what matters to us, regardless of outside noise.
That makes sense. And all this external pressure, it probably fueled Victoria's own internal struggles too, right? Those moments of deep reflection, the questioning identity and future.
Absolutely. Those restless nights the material mentions. It wasn't just about, can I handle a baby? It was deeper. Who am I now? Can I still be the person I wanted to be, the student, the career woman, and be a mother, especially starting now?
Yeah, that's a big one. For a young woman, especially maybe in a competitive environment like New York, the fear of losing that momentum, academically or professionally, must be intense.
Huge. How do you balance the all-consuming demands of a newborn with finishing a degree or starting a career? It forces a kind of identity crisis. How do I fit these roles together, especially when society sometimes suggests they don't easily mix, particularly when motherhood starts early?
But the story suggests she didn't just stay stuck in that anxiety. There was a shift.
Yeah, it seems there was a gradual shift, moving from that initial anxiety and maybe self-doubt towards acceptance, and then even further towards the kind of empowerment.
Okay.
Realizing, okay, this path wasn't planned, it's hard, but it's my path now, it's part of my story. And finding a way to own it, to approach it with agency, not just as something that happened to her.
That's a powerful shift. And David, was he growing alongside her?
Yes, the material points to David's parallel growth. His understanding of responsibility deepened. It moved beyond just, I need to provide money,
To what?
to realizing that true responsibility, true partnership here meant being emotionally present, really sharing the load, the sacrifice.
What does that look like in practice?
It means things like actively helping manage the emotional ups and downs that come with pregnancy, being there consistently at appointments without complaint, maybe sacrificing his own social life, his old routines, without making her feel guilty about it. Understanding that his support needed to be emotional and practical, not just financial, that's real structural support within the relationship.
So their journey, while incredibly difficult, really became this intense learning experience for both of them.
Exactly. It's a case study, really. Not about avoiding mistakes, perhaps, but about the incredible integrity and commitment needed to manage the profound consequences when they happen, and doing it together.
Okay, so this brings us to section 4. How does their very personal story connect to a broader awareness about risks and responsibility? Especially thinking about contexts where judgment might be impaired, which is relevant for, well, for our listeners.
Right. Victoria and David's whole experience became this incredibly vivid, real-world lesson for them. The realization hit hard. One single choice made without sufficient protection or planning fundamentally changed everything for both of them.
It drove home that intimacy without preparation isn't just about the moment. It has these long-reaching consequences, financial, emotional, career-related.
Exactly. The costs extend way beyond that initial physical act. And that lesson, drawn from their intense struggle, it's pretty universal, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And this is where we need to make that connection analytically. Linking their impulsive decision, perhaps made in a moment of lowered inhibition, to the kinds of environments where those decisions are more likely. The connection to impaired judgment, especially in social settings, like parties.
Right. Because in environments where alcohol or maybe other substances are involved, our decision-making processes literally change. We know this scientifically.
How does that work exactly?
Well, think about the brain's prefrontal cortex. That's the part responsible for planning ahead, thinking through consequences, controlling impulses, what we call executive function. Alcohol and certain drugs directly dampen the activity in that area.
So your ability to think long-term just decreases.
Precisely. And parties, by their very nature, often encourage lowering inhibitions. It's part of the atmosphere. People feel relaxed, maybe more emotionally open, less cautious. That can be great, but it also creates a situation where immediate feelings can easily override careful thought about future risks.
That's the specific danger we need to highlight, isn't it?
Yeah.
Substances don't just make you feel different. They literally blur your awareness of risk. They distort your perception.
Yeah. And that's when people might engage in unprotected sex when they wouldn't normally, or they might completely forget about the contraception they'd planned to use. Foresight just goes out the window because the immediate moment feels all-consuming.
Driven by chemicals, by emotion, by the social energy.
Exactly. And then, if an unplanned pregnancy results from that impulsive moment, the emotional fallout we talked about earlier gets amplified massively.
All that guilt, the fear, the confusion, it becomes deeply embedded, right? And potentially made worse by the social and family pressures we discussed.
Definitely. It's a heavy emotional burden to carry, often starting from a place of regret or if only.
And critically, these impulsive decisions have real tangible costs. They don't just affect feelings, they alter life paths. We saw that clearly with Victoria and David.
Right. An unplanned pregnancy often forces a major restructuring or even a complete halt to education plans or career trajectories. It slams the brakes on financial progress, especially for young adults who haven't built savings yet.
Suddenly you're facing 18+ years of expenses you hadn't budgeted for, maybe while also dealing with deferred income because your career path changed. The cost of that one night plays out over decades.
It creates this overwhelming period of adjustment that demands really sophisticated adult skills, budgeting, navigating insurance, maybe even legal stuff skills they might not have developed yet.
Which brings us back, full circle, to the lesson from their journey. The necessity of pre-intimacy communication. Their story is basically a huge flashing sign saying, plan ahead.
Yes, and the key isn't just a vague talk about it. It's about the content of that conversation and the timing. It has to happen before things get intimate.
What needs to be covered specifically?
Well, obviously the specifics of contraception. What method are we using? Who is responsible for it? Is it reliable? But also, clear communication about boundaries and consent, always. Understanding STI risks and how to manage them. And crucially, talking about the what if. What's the plan B if the primary method fails?
That last one feels really important, but maybe often overlooked.
Very often. It's an uncomfortable conversation maybe, but essential. It's about respecting not just each other's bodies in the moment, but respecting your shared future, your potential life paths together.
And it sounds like Victoria and David, having gone through this incredibly intense experience, they actually started talking about this stuff with others.
Yeah, the material suggests they began advocating among their peers, talking about how important sexual health education is, why reliable contraception matters, and why clear, honest communication is fundamental in any relationship. They basically turned their personal hardship into a way to help others be more prepared.
That really illustrates the final point here. The strength found in accountability. That initial passion, maybe unprotected, might feel intense.
Sure, it ignites a spark.
But the real strength in a relationship, the kind that actually lasts through tough times, through life-altering challenges, that comes from showing up for each other, from mutual accountability and consistent care.
That's the core conclusion, I think, from looking at their story. By facing the massive consequences of that initial choice head-on, with honesty, as a team, they didn't just get through it, they actually used it as a crucible. It forced them to grow, maybe faster and further than they ever thought possible, individually and as a couple.
It shows how facing up to a huge, unexpected consequence, while incredibly difficult, can actually forge a really profound, unexpected maturity. It's a powerful lesson in taking responsibility. So we followed their journey, and we're reaching the final stage described in the material, the culmination of all that stress, planning, and emotional growth. Victoria's heading into the final months.
Yeah, and it sounds like she faced it with real courage. Going to childbirth classes, mentally preparing for labor, for motherhood, all the things you do, but layered with the unique history of how this pregnancy began.
And David was right there with her. Nervous, probably, but completely committed, being that constant support.
The material paints a really vivid picture of the profound moment, the actual arrival of their baby in that hospital room in Manhattan.
What was that like?
Well, after hours of labor, Victoria finally holding their child. The tears they both shed weren't just joy, presumably, but also relief, acknowledgement of everything they'd been through.
Yeah, like the end point of that intense 9-month pressure cooker.
Exactly. And in that moment, holding their baby, they realized that every struggle, every fear, every sleepless night, every difficult conversation, it had all led to this undeniable, irreversible moment that bonded them together forever in a completely new way.
So their story,
Yeah.
it becomes our final takeaway, really. It's a powerful story, but it's about perseverance, not about everything being perfect.
Not at all. They learned that real love involves a lot more than just attraction. It requires immense courage. And that genuine adult responsibility demands strength, logistical planning, sacrifice.
Right. And that facing huge consequences, even ones you didn't want or plan for, with honesty and unity, that can lead to incredible growth. Growth beyond what you might have thought possible. It's a lesson in managing consequences for all of us, really.
It's a really strong testament, isn't it? That even when life throws you something totally unexpected and difficult, choosing accountability, choosing partnership, you can actually build something stable and meaningful, even on shaky ground.
Absolutely. We've covered a lot today: the emotional journey, the practical stresses, the social pressures, the importance of communication and planning. It's complex stuff.
Definitely.
So we genuinely want to hear from you, our listeners. We explicitly ask you to share your thoughts, your opinions, maybe your own experiences in the comments section below. Perhaps you've navigated a big, unexpected life change that demanded that kind of rapid growth or responsibility.
Yeah, sharing those stories can be really powerful. It helps build awareness and might offer insights or comfort to others facing similar challenges.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to the Party Animal Podcast. Make sure to check back in for future episodes, and please click that like button, turn on notifications, and subscribe to help this podcast bring more awareness to others while enjoying an amazing time minus the pitfalls.
Be safe.